Hi, how are you tonight? Welcome. This is 11 Lakes Stamper, and my name is Roberta Colasino, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. My computer was not cooperating a couple of minutes ago, and it just didn't want to start up, and it didn't want to let me open Facebook, but I think we're good. All right, let's see. Yep, we're good. All right, so I thought I was bringing you something new from the new catalog, but it turned out that what I was actually bringing you was actually two things were online exclusives. And to begin with, I kind of got those things mixed up. As a demonstrator, we get the opportunity to pre-order things before the catalog goes live so that we can play with them a little bit and start to demonstrate things for people and get people excited about the catalog going live. And the catalog is live now. And so I just clicked on a bunch of things that were pre-order that I liked without realizing that they weren't in the catalog. So I went searching on the catalog for pictures of the whole things to show you, and of course they weren't in the catalog. So I do have my iPad here, and I will show you on my iPad. It's not quite as large or clear as the catalog page, but I think it'll work. So I'll put the camera down and we will get started. I tightened something that I don't think wanted to be tightened on my tripod, and so now I'm having trouble moving it to where I want it to move. But I think, well, no, that's really not good, is it? Hang on. There's just so many knobs on this thing, and it's not like I don't know how to use it, but if I turn the wrong one, it's going to go in the wrong direction, and that's not good. I think it's just supposed to move, but it's stiff. All right. I do apologize that I kind of have to go through this every week. It would be nice if I didn't, but I have to move it out of my way when I'm working, because when I'm working, I'm sometimes standing up and then it's hitting me in the face, which is no fun. Okay, so there you see my iPad. And what I'm bringing you today is, and it's kind of I got confused by the names too. So it's called the Floral Impressions Suite Collection. And that's if you buy the entire suite. And the suite comes with designer series paper, it comes with stamps, it comes with dies, it comes with some bling, it comes with an embossing folder, and it comes, I'm pointing like you can see what I'm pointing at, and it comes with these gold, these gold label stickers. All right, so it comes with a lot. You don't necessarily have to get that all. So your other option is to just buy the bundle. And the bundle is usually a stamp set in dies or a stamp set in punch, and occasionally a stamp set and a hybrid embossing folder. Okay, so obviously it's a much smaller investment if you buy just the bundle. It's really, really pretty. It sort of reminds me of Dina Rico's $1 Million Achiever stamp set that she designed, which I think was called Pretty Petals, something like that. And we haven't had anything quite that fun in a while, so I'm really enjoying this one a lot. So let me show you everything that comes with it, because we're using a lot of it tonight. So this is the designer series paper that comes with it. All right, it's got some really beautiful florals, and the main colors in here are, well, you've also got some of the new in colors. So I've got those over here. So we've got ink and we've got paper, and then I have an explanation about the ink. So there's a whole lot going on. So color-wise, this designer series paper set has Crushed Curry, Darling Duckling, which is one of the new in colors, and that's a yellow color, which until I put them next to each other, I thought, oh gee, that just looks like Crushed Curry, but I'll show you. Every time we think we have something new that looks like something else, that's Darling Duck. And come on. I had a piece of crushed curry right here. Here it is. I see. No, that's not it. Well, it disappeared on me, but I had a piece here. And let me tell you, they really are nothing alike. So I was thinking, why did they give us another color so similar to one we already had, but it absolutely was not. So that's Darling Duck, and that's one of the new in colors. It also has Strawberry Slush, which is one of the new in colors. And I didn't actually use this color in this set, but I used it in a background that I might use. So this is another one of the new in colors, and it's called Secret Sea. Now when I looked at it, I really saw gray. A little while ago, I looked to my left, and a piece of it was sitting under a light, and it definitely looked blue. When I played with these stamps and then cleaned out my chamois, the water that came out of my chamois was blue. So it is a kind of a blue-gray, and I think it's one of those things that depending on the light, it's going to depend how it looks to you. This one is called Timid Tiger, and that's kind of an orangey color, sort of somewhere between orange and peach. And then the other new in color is this one, which is called, oh, of course I'm going to forget it, right? Which is called something. And there's a problem with the ink pad, so I'll get to that in a few minutes. So this Designer Series paper set has lots of beautiful colors in it, some old, some new, and they do that on purpose. It's also got Misty Moonlight in it, which is definitely a color that's been around for a while. It was an in color a few years ago, and then it came back as a primary color. It's got Old Olive, it's got Garden Green, it's got some pecan pie, and it's got some fresh freesia. So it's really kind of full of color, and just taking a quick look at it, I think you can see how much color it's full of. All right, so I won't show you every sheet right now, but like our typical Designer Series paper, one side is always kind of very busy, and I won't say wild, but kind of busy, and then the other side is less so. So this one just has the Darling Duck on the back and just a very small check. So they're all like that. So if you buy it and you're not totally into flowers, don't panic, because on the reverse side there's always something that is definitely not flowers. All right, so that's the Designer Series paper that it comes with. This is the bling that it comes with, and this bling, which I thought kind of interesting, is called Strawberry Slush and Pretty and Pink Gems. But up at the top, where you can barely see it, there are some gems that look almost either clear with gold in them or possibly like champagne-y type color. So those are really lovely. There is an embossing folder, and it's not a 3D embossing folder, it's just a regular embossing folder. And that is called the Pressed Flowers embossing folder. Right, that comes with it, and here is a piece of paper that I embossed with that, and let's hope that you can see this. Because it's, oh yeah, there we go. Because it's not a 3D embossing folder, it doesn't make a deep, deep image. All right, and then it comes with the stamp set, of course, which is here. And it comes with these, and I'm not quite sure if they're stickers or if they're just ephemera that you have to glue on. They're called Foiled Frames and Labels Ephemera Pack. So I'm guessing not stickers. So if you can see the way they're divided up there, you've got the label on the inside, and then you've got all these frames as well. The gold are the frames, and the white part is the label. So that's pretty interesting. I don't know that we're playing with that tonight, but it's kind of interesting. So the suite really does come with a lot of things. The bundle will just come with a stamp set and dies. Now the dies, and I wanted to show you these dies too because they're quite unique actually. The dies, let me make sure I'm in frame here. Let's go up a little further. There we go. So it comes with, I think it was 25 dies. These dies, when I first looked at them, and that's why I left them together so you could see them, I realized that the outside die was what cut out the flowers that I had just stamped. I figured that out, no problem. And then there were these wonky looking ones that sort of look like amoeba, or I don't know what they look like. And I finally figured out that they fit inside of each other because one doesn't actually cut, it's just an embossing. So this is the die that cuts, and this is the die that embosses and fits inside, so that you get this as the end result. You get a flower that is both cut and embossed. And it's very deeply embossed to the point where it actually cuts through, so you can see air through there. Okay, so that was pretty unique. And I left those, like I said, whole so that you could see what they were and how they worked. Because if I just looked at this thing, my thought was, what is that? Was I supposed to get that? Is that a leftover piece or something? Very glad I didn't trash it. I've learned my lesson to really pay attention. So that's what that one does. And this paper is the strawberry slush color. And so the flowers come in 3 sizes. At least with the stamps, they come in 3 sizes. The dies, however, have another die. Actually, there's 2 of them, which is kind of neat. There are 6 flowers embedded in these 3 dies. So they don't come out together, they come out separately. And what's nice about that is you can cut out 6 at a time and get these tiny flowers. The one thing I have not quite figured out yet is these, which are, hang on, these are dies that just emboss, and yet they don't fit in any die that cuts out leaves. At least none that I have found yet. So I'm not quite sure about those, exactly what you do with them. And then there are dies that are not represented by stamps. So these are some flowers, and this die cuts out 2 at a time. This die cuts out 1 larger one, but there is no stamp that matches those. There is no stamp that matches this, and there is no stamp that matches this, and there is no stamp exactly that matches this, but there is a stem stamp. So what I really thought about with these dies and with this bundle that I kind of wanted to mention, you save 10% when you buy something as a bundle, and that's great. But honestly, depending on your personality, and then there are these 2 dies that this one actually cuts out a frame. Yeah, like that. Okay, and it's slightly embossed with little dots going around the rim. And then this one I haven't actually used, but I think this one just cuts out the inside, whereas this one gives you the frame and the inside. But to tell you the truth, I didn't try this one yet. So what I was going to say is that you could almost choose to buy the stamps or the dies. But then you would be choosing to either fussy cut or just stamp, just simple stamping. So you could do without. You could also choose to just buy the dies, and instead of stamping flowers, you could just die cut flowers. Because of the fact that they're embossed, they don't just look like big blobs of a color. They really look like flowers. So that's just a thought. You know, if you're looking for a way to save money, that is just a thought. And these 2 things both stamp out or cut out and emboss the center of the flowers. So you've got a whole lot to choose from there. A whole lot to choose from. And I played with it a lot. And so I made a lot of these things. Today I was cranking out the embossing machine. All right. And then the other thing that I did, which is with another online special, online exclusive, and that is called Painted Stripes. Now I put this on the Stamparatus because typically with a large background stamp like this, that is the way to go. And I stamped it up on the Stamparatus, and then you close the door of the Stamparatus, and you can close it 3, 4, 5 times until you get the image that you want. I found that this color, which is the Secret Sea, it just kind of wasn't cooperating with me. I even ended up giving up on the Stamparatus and just putting paper down on top of it. I ended up stamping up or inking up the stamp using my sponge dauber, and I just wasn't getting what I wanted. Now, it's supposed to be a distinctive stamp, which means it'll show you different shades of color. So this one done in the strawberry slush is absolutely perfect. This one is exactly how it's supposed to look. It's supposed to have light areas and dark areas. It's not supposed to have splotches. So I'm going to have to keep playing with that. With the Darling Duckling, I also had more success, but not as much as with the strawberry slush, but it was okay. With the Timid Tiger, I did very well with that. And then, of course, there's the other one that we still don't have the ink pads for. So I thought I might try to use one of these as a background tonight on one of the cards as well. So I've kind of got a bunch of things out here that I'm thinking of playing with tonight. All right, so we'll get out the first one, which is going to be on a fresh freesia base. because Fresh Freesia is one of the colors there. And I thought I cut the layer, the top layer, so that it would be the exact same size as the base, which means you're not going to see the Fresh Freesia until you open it up. But I think that's okay, right? We don't always have to see it. I don't typically do that because I like seeing some trim around the edge, but this time I thought I wouldn't. So we'll see what happens with that. So of course the problem with this is I had to make the choice, which side was I going to use? And it's tough to put glue on something that pretty, but that's what I decided. Still having trouble with my ink. I redid some of them, refilled some of them, and some of them are just doing okay, and some of them aren't. Not ink, glue, sorry. All I can think about is that it's possible that some of this glue got either too cold or too warm in my car while traveling back from Florida, because I didn't have this problem in Florida. So I'm just not sure what the issue is, not at all, but I'm hoping that it gets better. And I had some new ones at home that I can refill from, and those haven't been anywhere. They haven't been exposed to anything, so I'm hoping that that won't be an ongoing issue, because I've never had trouble with this glue. Never, never. And now I'm just having like nothing but trouble with it. Okay. There we go. But it's coming out funny, like it's chunky or slow or something. I'm just not sure. It wasn't too terribly warm or cold on my trip. And I didn't take the ink pads. I didn't take any of the stuff out of the car that I sometimes am prepared to take out of the car. And the ink pads seem fine, and the refills seem fine, so I don't know. The glue might be a little bit more sensitive. What can I say? All right, so the best way to get that lined up is just to kind of do that. And then you know that it's going to be everywhere it needs to be. All right, and then I'm trying to think. For this one, I think my plan was, let's put those over there with the dies, because I had two plans. One was going to use a white ring, because you don't want this to go to waste, with the Fresh Freesia inside, and one was going to use the Fresh Freesia with that inside. And let me look. It's the other piece of designer series paper that I'm using for another card. I think either one would look okay. So I think I'll save this one for that card, and we'll do this one for this card. That's what I'm thinking. So we're going to put that down here. Need to get my bone folder and just help this card stay closed a little bit. Okay, much better. So that's going to go in the middle, and that's going to go around the outside. And I'm wondering if a tiny piece of tape in a couple of places before I glue it down might just help keep it from going wonky on me. I think that might be a plan. Never have Scotch tape too far from where I'm working, because it always seems to come in handy for something. Well, now this one seems to be wonky anyway. Let's see if I can close that gap a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. Once I glue it, I think it'll be fine. All right, so that way we're picking up on the Fresh Freesia that goes inside. And then I thought about using all of those colors. Well, no, not all of them, but 3 of the colors that I picked out that were in the pattern paper. But I also wanted to show you the ones that I stamped, and I'll do some stamping so that you can see how this works. So this is 2-step stamping. Oh, that one I forgot to do part of. So when you stamp them, there's two little stamps that go in the center. One is flat, solid, and that's what I did that in the Darling Duckling. And then you flip it over to the other side, which is a little bit distressed, and you use the pecan pie, which I stamped off once because I just wanted it to be really light, but this one I completely forgot to do. So that's what they look like, and I wasn't sure which stuff I wanted to use for this card. If I wanted to use the stamped ones, let me see how many I have, because I don't remember how many I did, because I might want them for another card too. Oh, wait a minute. Here's the leaves that those other ones go with. I knew something was missing. Okay, so the leaf will do the same thing then as the flower, where you put the tiny little leaves inside these leaves to emboss them. Okay, I feel much better now. All right. Yeah, I don't have that many stamps, so I can probably only use stamped ones maybe on one card. I don't think I want to use a mixture of stamped and just die cut. So these leaves are stamped and die cut, but then there are leaves like this that are just die cut. And they're all equally pretty, they're just different, which is fine. Different is okay. So I think I'm going to get that glued down, and then I have to decide on a sentiment, and then I think I'll be okay to use either one really, but I think I'm going to use the stamped ones on this one. So let's get this glued down. Let's hope the glue is cooperating. I'm going to get some glue. That's what I love about these fine tip bottles, is that you can get glue. Before I end up dropping this on here, let's get this out of the way for a minute or two. You can get just a tiny bead of glue on something as narrow as this border, and that's really helpful, especially since it wants to be a little wonky. It wasn't laying flat all the time. It was a little curved, so I think it got a little bent. Okay. Checking to see where the top of my card is versus the bottom of my card, because I think we've all done that. Doesn't matter yet, but it will as soon as I start putting things on here. Yep. Okay. So say it is kind of a grid pattern, so it helps you get it straight, but sometimes I need more help than that. All right, then I think we'll use a combination of glue and dimensionals for this next part. Take your pick tool. All right, so basically, oh yeah, sentiment. So I've got every single thing on a block. I think I'm going to use the I appreciate you and then put the thank you on the inside. All right, and since we're using some Misty Moonlight flowers, let's stamp the sentiment in the Misty Moonlight, which is another one of those colors that I know I've told you sometimes stamps super well. I don't know why. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but some of them just stamp beautifully, give a beautiful image, and some, just not as beautiful. Yes. Okay. Because now that I glued that on there, we both know that, or we all know, that if that hadn't gone well, I'd have a problem. Alright, so I think I'm going to use the stamped ones and put the die cut ones aside for the next card. And so I have 2 of each color, and then I have a bunch of those too. Pretty sure I did quite a few to make sure I had enough. Alright, and sometimes when you die cut, if your die slips or you don't line it up just right, you may notice that there's a tiny bit more white on the edge here than I might like, and it's no problem just to take your snips and snip it off. And then you don't have so much white, because it happens. Sometimes when it goes under the rollers, in your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, it can shift a tiny bit. Even if you have it taped down, sometimes it just moves just the tiniest bit, just enough to make it a little off, and it's not usually a big problem. Okay, that should do it, and I hope so, because that's all I have. So basically what I want to do, oh, I forgot to do these two, both of them. All right, so that way I can show you how that works. So because these are clear stamps, let's see, I just need a quick piece of scrap paper here. And the pecan pie and the larger textured stamp. And I'm just going to tap that on there, tap it off once, because that's kind of dark. I thought that would be too dark. And then tap it in there, and it just gives us a little texture, and you can see where that would be just kind of too much, in my opinion. Okay, so there, now we've got a little texture, and that's good. I'll save that scrap paper because I have a note on there, something that I need. All right, so I want to arrange these. Obviously, there's just way too much white space there. I don't know if I even need them all. We'll see. And I want to bring these out so that I don't forget to use them. Let's see, let's close this up. That might be a good idea before I put my hand in it or drop a card in it or who knows what else. Well, maybe I will want to use them all. Just kind of make them kind of diagonally across from each other, maybe? Is that too much? I don't know. I think it might be okay. I have to be careful not to go off the edge there, though. So maybe the smaller one in the corners, or in some of the corners. And maybe, well, no, that just doesn't work either, does it? Unless one corner is bigger than the other. I don't know, it almost looks like maybe it is, which would mean I didn't get them even, but I will survive that. All right, then I'm going to put those that way, though, because these are better in those little spots, I think. And then we're going to want to get some leaves. So you know what I'm going to do before I play with the dimensionals? I'm going to get some leaves glued on the back of some of the flowers. So our weatherman here in the Finger Lakes today told us that we were going to have seasonably cold temperatures for this time of year in the Finger Lakes. I don't think anybody was too happy about that. I was kind of thinking maybe I'd get to open my pool early this year. I tend to put it off, and then all of a sudden it's like 90 degrees and I'm wanting it. That like that. I don't know that I'm really going to get 2 on all of them. I may not even get 1 on all of them. Let's see. I got out my tweezers, but they're not going to help me pick things up off the glass mat. Alright, so if I hide that one a little bit further back, we can get that there. Should some of them maybe have 2 leaves? Maybe I don't have enough leaves for all of them to have 2 leaves. I definitely thought I was making enough of those, but maybe I could have made a couple more. Okay. Okay. So this set definitely makes me happy. It reminds me a lot of that set that I was mentioning, and it just makes me happy because I was very sad when that set went away. Sometimes the $1 Million Achievers stamp sets carry over, and sometimes they don't, and hers did not, which was unfortunate because it was just really nice. But they decide what's going to retire and what isn't going to retire before they even get a chance to see how it sells, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I guess it's just like they start planning their catalogs like, several years in advance, so they really have to. So I'm sure sometimes they have a conversation where they say, boy, I wish we didn't do that, but at that point it's too late. All right, so we've got one leaf on every one, and sticking one extra on one of them I think would look kind of silly, so I won't. Okay. Maybe. Grab a couple of the mini dimensionals for the leaf part. Just to pull that down. This could end up being the longest part of making the whole card here, just because it's a little fiddly. Okay. Maybe I won't get carried away with too many, and if I decide they need more later, you can always slide them underneath using the spatula end or the pointy end of your Take Your Pick tool. So now I don't remember which way that leaf was going. I don't want them all pointing inside. Let's go that way. Yeah, that definitely, it will need more because it's going to be wonky without it, but that can wait till later. And sometimes I'll even glue down a tip even though I know that means it's not going to be even, but if I'm afraid of it getting caught going in or out of the envelope, I will glue down a tip. And now I can see that one is sticking out a little bit. Isn't that pretty? And I do like the embossing. I don't think, I have to pull it out and look, but I don't think the other stamp set that I've been talking about had any embossing features to it, to the dies. So this is kind of nice. Okay. Alright, so there we go. So it's got some nice dimension to it. And it certainly is colorful, that's for sure. Alright, and then I haven't had a chance to get these put in my my little cases that I like to use for them. So I'll do this thing. You cut open the edge, and then you don't have to buy special cases for them, but I do anyway. You cut open the edge, you can slide it out without having to go through the pulling up the thing and opening it up. Alright. So I did not use any Pretty in Pink, and these just have the Strawberry Slush. I've got to get used to the new colors. I still feel like I want to use one of the Pretty in Pink ones. I do. We've only got 2 sizes. Yeah, whatever. Let's use one. Little bling goes a long way. And then we need a liner for the inside. Did I remember to cut a liner? Who knows? Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Well, we'll use this one for now. Okay. What I'm noticing now, there's just a tiny, tiny bit hanging off, or hanging over the edge there. So that's what I love the paper snips for. You just put them at a little angle and cut carefully and use the edge of the paper as your guide. In this case, the edge of the card base. You can cut off even the tiniest little sliver like that. They're also super sharp, so you do have to be very careful with them. All right, so I need the Misty Moonlight again. And the thank you sentiment. Is it thank you or is it thanks? It's thanks. And that's really crooked too, so let's put that down and see if I can get it. Oop, wrong way. Put it down and see if I can get it a little bit straighter. Okay. Which doesn't guarantee that I'll actually stamp it straight, but it helps. It helps. Okay, I think that's right. For the most part. For the most part. Oh, look how close that ink pad got to that card. Okay, and then I could, because I kind of wanted to show you the stamping, but now it scares me because if I mess it up, I won't be happy. But let's see. So the way I like to do it, and I know other people do it differently, is I like to stamp the detail inside image first. And that may depend on the stamp, because I know in the past there have been times when I have done just the opposite and stamped the backgroundy part first. So we're going to ink that up. And I'm stamping that full strength and just going a little off the edge. And that's pretty. And you know what? You could use that just by itself, I think. That's just my opinion, but I think you could use that just by itself. And then the filler piece is way over here. And that's where you kind of have to look and see, which with stamping off, that's one of the problems, is where's the section that has 3 in a row. And I think that's it right there, but I'm going to dry fit it first to see, and it is. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this up, ink this up. I always say stamp. And then I'm going to stamp off once, and then I'm going to come in, and because this is a clear stamp, am I on camera? Just barely, okay. Because this is a clear stamp, I can see through it. And my other theory is that I'm using the hole in the middle as well as the petals to guide me. And it's not meant to be perfect, but guess what? That's darn close. I couldn't be happier with that. Now we need the Darling Duck and the pecan pie. So pecan pie, naturally the Darling Duck is on the bottom. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is find, I want to get one of these out of the way. Okay, so here's the centerpiece, and I'm doing that in full strength Darling Duck. Okay, and again that, well, it probably could have gone like a titch over that way, but I don't lose sleep over stuff like that. I've just decided life is too short to worry about those things. And now this one is the one with the texture on it, and I'm going to ink that up in the pecan pie. But because, like I said, see if I put that in this one here, well, I didn't do it straight. I don't know, it just seems too dark to me. So I wanted to stamp off once and then go back in and do it. And it's more subtle. I like it better that way. Okay, so that gives us a little something to pretty up the inside as well. And then we are ready to assemble the card. But honestly, you could almost do that and not put the background, the inside stamp. I also wanted to point out, so this is the one that I just stamped, and this is the one that I stamped earlier today or yesterday, and you can see that as the colors dry, they do get lighter. So when you first stamp a color, you might sometimes think, oh, I got some schmutz on that, and I don't know what that is or where it came from. Could have been on my hands, I don't know. Never fails when you're using white paper, too. That's when you get stuff on it. We'll see if my sand eraser will get that off. I don't think I have it right here. That is, but it looks like it's a little bit of the pecan pie. And I just don't see the eraser right now, but the sand eraser will get that off. It's very light. You might not even be able to see it. Who knows? I feel like everything's looking dark again tonight. So that is card number 1, and I'm just really liking that. Really liking that. And just so that you know, we have ephemera packs that have flowers in them so that you can build a card without stamping a thing. If you like the way cards like this look, but you just don't agree, stamping doesn't agree with you or whatever, then give that a try. Give that a try. Okay. Sorry. I was looking for one thing and I found something else. All right, so actually I won't need a liner for this card because it's already all white. So that solves that problem. This one, we are going to leave a little border on this one. No, not this one. I'm thinking that embossed piece that I used, I want to use that somewhere, but I'm not sure where because I was thinking of cutting out another one, you know, a shape of this embossed, but my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine has found a new home on the kitchen island because I find that I have to stand up quite a while, you know, when I'm cutting a bunch of things, and even my kitchen counter is a lower height and I have to bend over. So standing up for a long time in a kind of a bent position just doesn't work well for my body. Whereas my island is totally higher, so I can stand completely erect and not worry about a pain in my back. So basically it's just been sitting on a corner of my island for quite a while now because I've been doing a lot of stamping and cutting and embossing lately. So the only problem with that is I can't just grab it and pick it up. And I will tell you, because I told you I would keep you posted about products that, you know, I like to begin with and whatever, but my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine stopped working. Didn't stop working until I'd had it for maybe, I don't know, 3 years? I have to look back and see. I think I've had it maybe 3 years. And it just stopped working. And I don't really know why, and I've heard some other people say that theirs stopped working, and I've heard other people say, I don't know what you're talking about, mine's working just great, so I don't know. Alright, now this one's going to be different, so this card's going to go this way, portrait style. Let me do the same little trick with this one that I did with the tape with the others, and see if I can get this to stay together. Can't even rip the tape. It's pretty bad. Talk about feeling like a weakling. Come on. So what happened with it is that it was like the roller just stopped grabbing the plates. And I tried using shims, you know, thinking maybe that was an issue. So a shim is just where you take an extra piece of cardstock or something and put it in along with your regular sandwich. I thought that was the problem, and I can't get it to work again. But after 3 years, you know, it's not under warranty now. If, you know, 1,000 people said this happened to their Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I think that Stampin' Up! Would take a good look at it. In fact, if a product fails them in some way, they usually take it off the market and stop selling it. So that didn't happen. So obviously we're in the minority. I know of some people who have the same problem, but we must be in the minority. This way, right? I think. But before I glue it down, let me think about this. So this time I want to use some of these leaves and some of these stems. Let me show you. This is how smart the people at Stampin' Up! Are. So when they designed these stems, they put this little thing. Why does it feel so dark in here? Hang on. Excuse my head because I think you're probably seeing it. Let's get a little more light in here, maybe. Sometimes the light just makes shadows and I can't decide if it's better or worse. They put these little tiny things at the top that are like a spot to put the glue, because otherwise there's not much for the glue to grab on. So when you're putting a flower on there, and now we have these flowers that we can use, even though they're not, there's no stamp for those flowers. So we could use some of these, and then there's just that little spot there so that it can grab onto it. And we've got the double one, and we've got a single one. And then we've got the kind of cluster of leaves, but we've also got all of the little individual leaves. And we've got these do-jiggers. So if we want to use these flowers, we can assemble them, and I'll just assemble one whether I use it or not. We can assemble them, and then the only thing is there isn't any pecan pie, but I had an idea, and I cut some of these out of the smaller ones that are actually meant to be used in the smaller flowers as centers, and thought I could double it up like that. Could do it that way, but there's nothing that says that these flowers have to match or look just like the other ones. I don't think so. I think it doesn't matter. That's what I think. So you can do all of this without stamping a thing except your sentiment, probably. And, just so you know, we have ephemera packs that actually have sentiments in them that you just punch out and glue on. So if you were a person who has loved all of these things that you see people making and just said, but I'll never do it because I hate stamping, we have stuff for you. I personally can't imagine hating stamping, but that's okay because I'm just me, you know what I mean? I don't represent anybody but me. So you absolutely could just buy the different ephemera packs. And I have some left over from last year that maybe I should get out and play with a little bit just so that some of you can see what that looks like. So I kind of like these, but what did I do? Oh, I did a big one and a small one in this color. So I could do that, and then maybe some of the others. I mean, basically I can do whatever I want, right? So all right, let's go ahead and glue this down because I can't really work with it until it's where it needs to be. So we'll do the same thing. Get some glue around the edges, and thankfully the glue is cooperating now. Because for stuff like this, I just love these glue bottles. It's the same glue, but I put it in these bottles. The other thing is we just don't have as much mess even in classes. Some people squeeze extra hard, and then we have a lot of messes. And this glue, which is kind of an advantage and a disadvantage, I'll be honest, it dries sticky. Now if you have one of the glue erasers, and I do sell those, it's really not a problem. You can get it off and it comes off nicely. But if you get it on your hands, you know, like if you really make a mess and get it on your hands are going to stay sticky until you wash them. A little bit of, yep, it's right here, hand sanitizer will somehow, it takes the sticky off your hands, but it doesn't actually remove the glue from your hands. It just keeps it from being nasty sticky while you're working with other things. Because once you get that glue on your hands, then everything you touch sticks to your hands. And it gets to be kind of obnoxious after a while. All right, so let's see. I'm going to attach these. I'm not going to put them on here yet. So you just put a little dot of glue there, and you put that on there, and it will stay. I'm going to cover that whole thing up though. I'm just going to put it down there, and I'm going to set a glue block on top of it. think I had trouble saying that word last week too, didn't I? Uh-oh, wait a minute. That one was yellow. There's a small yellow one. Okay, I've got a big blue one and a small blue one that I can use for this double one. So we're just gonna put a dot there and a dot there, and the definite advantage of this glue is that it is very strong. And once it catches, it catches. So using wet glue over the tape runner gives you, you know, like a minute to wiggle if something goes on in the wrong direction or whatever. But once it really dries, it's going nowhere, I promise you. So then, let's see. I could put one of these there, or I don't want it to get like too crowded, funky looking. But we could also slip one of these like in here, but in the background, and just put stuff on top of it. Now the other thing you have to think about when using things with stems is that you can't just put them on willy-nilly, because the stems are going to look kind of awkward if you do. So what I tend to do with these is I put them on at an angle so that all of the stems meet in kind of the same spot. And then I usually end up covering it up with a sentiment or with something that will keep you, if it's neatly done, like if they're all really landing in the same spot, you maybe don't have to do that. And sometimes I cut the stems to make them a little bit shorter. Yeah, so I kind of like that, and I don't know that I'd want to add a ton more to that. Could add a couple of extra leaves, and then I don't know that I want to come in with these flowers. But I only stamped these two stems, which might not, or only cut, which might not have been a smart move on my part, but I could add more. Let's see if I put them there, like a kind of a V, and then put that there. And you don't have to be neat about it at all if you know that you're covering it up, and or you know what you're covering it up with. Then you just don't have to worry about it at all. Right? And I'm not sure that I would use any of these at this point. And I'm not sure that I would use any of these little ones, because they wouldn't really have anything to be attached to unless you put them along here. But that might look a little awkward, because then the flowers would be so much smaller. So this is my process. This is what I do. You know, I think it all through. Sometimes I do it all ahead of time and I just slap it together and say this is the way it is. And other times I do want you to see the process, and sometimes it's on purpose, and sometimes it's just because that's the way it ended up being, to be very honest. But either way, I think it's good, because I know some people will say, well, Jay, I didn't see how you really thought that out. I didn't see how you did it. And then some people don't want to see that. So I'm never sure. So I try to do a little bit of both. All right, so I think I'm ready to put these down. As soon as I find my glue, there it is. So here you also want to be light-handed with the glue, because these leaves actually have cuts in them, not just embossing. So if you put a lot of glue, when you press the leaves down, it's gonna, now I can use my tweezers, it's gonna ooze through the leaves, which would probably not be pretty, although the glue does dry clear. So it would just be messy initially. All right, so we're gonna put one kind of going that way, and maybe that far up, and then maybe this one would go a little further up, or maybe these are going to go further up. Okay, I'll do a third card off camera. I like to do different ones off camera and then let you see them when I post the pictures, because like these are both two very colorful cards, and you might be saying there's no way in you know where that you could make a masculine card with this set, and I'm thinking that I could. So then I feel like it's almost a challenge to prove to you that I could. Like for some reason, and this is just ideas in my head, for some reason this flower looks more feminine than that flower. And that could just be totally me, and it could be just weird thinking. And it also could be that, you know, sometimes we get ideas in our head about what's feminine and what's masculine, and those ideas aren't even right. even in terms of colors. I mean, look at guys who wear Hawaiian shirts, right? They're wearing flowers in all kinds of colors. And that's, you know, if that's the kind of style they like, then that's fine. And then I know, like, my husband dressed pretty much in navy blue or black. I'm not even sure. At one point, he had this pink shirt that I think his mother bought him. And he wore it one time on a flight down to Florida. And there was some type of problem with the flight. I don't remember what it was, but like it was a bad problem that if they didn't get back to the airport and get service pretty quickly, you know, something really bad could have happened. And so my husband got it in his head that that pink shirt was his lucky shirt, and he started wearing it. I shouldn't laugh. He started wearing it every time he flew. Every time he flew. And he was absolutely convinced that that shirt was keeping him safe. At some point, he had to give it up because I think the shirt got stained and it just got old looking and I couldn't get it clean anymore. And even he had to agree it wasn't really wearable anymore. But anyway, you know, so, and that's how some people are. And then again, I worked with a woman years ago who wore black on black every single day to work. Now, she had a zillion different dresses, pantsuits, tunics, jackets, you name it. She had a very varied wardrobe, at least in terms of style, but everything was black. Everything. She wasn't like heavy set, you know. Some people think if you're heavy, wear dark colors, it makes you look thinner or whatever. She just really liked black. And I should probably mention, I don't know where she is these days, but she was a school psychologist, so that just kind of made me chuckle. That the school psychologist dressed all in black. I always wondered if any of the kids thought anything of that. All right, now I'm not happy that I have that bigger space there, but you know what we can do with that bigger space, right? We can do bling. Or I could... Can't have different color flowers coming off the same stalk, though. That's weird. But I could add another one right here, couldn't I? Sure I could. Absolutely could. And I'll cover up the tip of that leaf. It gives the whole thing a little bit more of a dimensional look. There. And I'm still going to put some bling in there. I've got that. I don't know what that is. It's not. It's like a dent. Like I hit it with something or whatever. So there we go. That's very pretty. So now I need to decide on a sentiment, and I need to decide on like what I want to make it out of. What other sentiments have I not used? What is this one? Okay, it says so very much. So there has to be like a part one to that. So I'm thinking maybe thank you so very much. This one says for being there, so it could be thank you for being there, or thank you so very much. And then this one is I appreciate you, which we already used. Alright, so last time we put the thank you on the inside. And of course, if you have multiple stamp sets, there's absolutely nothing that says you have to use the sentiments that come with a set. Right? Sometimes the sentiment really pertains to the set, but not always. So where did that thank you go? So thanks for being there. All right, so I need something to put that on. All right, got some scrap paper here. Let's use the side that doesn't have any muck on it. And again, I think I'm going to use, let's use the Secret C and see what that looks like. The only thing is being a brand new stamp pad, it could be almost too juicy. We'll have to see. I have not used this actually in anything I've made yet, so let's see what that looks like. And let's see if the ink looks more blue than the paper does. It's definitely not black. I mean, if I stamp this in black right now and you saw them side by side, it's not black. It's definitely a darker color. All right, so do I want to punch something out, or do I just want to do a strip of some kind? I think maybe just a strip. Let's see, I'm gonna start out longer. Just want to make sure that it's going to cover that up. And I think that was not straight to begin with, so let's straighten that out. Okay, plenty big enough to straighten, to cover that, but I want to make it a little bit smaller then. I didn't want to do that until I was sure I could cover up the funny mess there. Okay. So just the part with the word will do to cover that up. Scissors, here we go. So we're just going to do the little a lot of people out on their motorcycles, like they've just decided that it's spring, even if it's 40 degrees or whatever. And I get that. I really do. I'm ready for spring to be here. I don't want to put on a heavy coat again. I just don't. So I'll go outside and freeze if I have to, rather than put on a heavy coat. That's how stubborn I get about it when I decide coat season is over. But let's not put thanks upside down, because that would be weird. Okay. Thanks, and then on the inside, and if you mess this up, then all you have to do is take a punch out or a piece of paper and put it over it. So thanks for being there. Okay. What did I just do with the ink pad that I had 2 minutes ago? Here it is. Secret C. Well, it's a tiny bit crooked and a tiny bit not good, so I'm probably going to want to cover that up. See, there was a little too much ink right there, and it didn't come off. Alright, so that I'm going to fix later, and I can fix that in a couple of ways. I can take a strip of the DSP and put that along the bottom and cover it up. I could slap a flower right over it, but that is kind of an odd thing. I want to get something in the way of flowers in here. So one way or another, I will fix that, because that's just not good. It's not good enough to meet my standards. I let a lot slide, I really do, but that would bug me. And let's get some bling on here too. I wish there were some really tiny, tiny ones. For some reason, I'm just feeling like, okay, so one of them's going to go over that little oops there, whatever I did there. And one here. And one here. And then even though you're supposed to keep it odd, I'm going to, I have nothing on there. I was like, wait a minute. I'm going to put one more just right there. I don't want to balance it out by putting another one over there. So I'm just doing that because I really like that light pink color, but I like the contrast of the dark. Okay, so we'll do a 2-card tonight. What I was trying to tell you about the ink is that the other color, and I just can't remember the name of it, and why they don't have it on here, I don't know. Gosh, I've completely forgotten it. It's just right out of my head. Something cloud, that's it, something cloud. And the ink had a chemical reaction with the foam, and so it just wouldn't work. So they have not even put the foam out. There's no, the ink pad out. There's no fixing it. So they've just decided that for 2 years we're not going to have that in a full-size pad. Now, it's a nice color. So the alternative is that you can buy the uninked Stampin' Spots and buy the re-inker and ink it, Or you can buy in the catalog, they have a set of 5 of the mini Stampin' Spots. And what is that? Cloud or cloudy something. Anyway, that color is one of the ink spots. And then you'll have that ink to use. And to be perfectly honest with you, for using a stamp set like, let's say this one, having those mini ink spots is great if you want to do some in one color and some in another and some in another. It's perfect for that, and you can use them just as easily. They really do work on any size stamp. You just do it upside down. So instead of inking it up this way, you ink it up on top, and it's just fun. All right, so I have blue on my finger, I see. So these are the 2 cards that we made tonight, and they're both lovely. The Designer Series paper makes a beautiful background. Either way, just a solid color would have made a nice background. I couldn't be happier with the way they came out. So thank you for joining me tonight. Don't forget about my YouTube channel. And yes, I wanted to say thank you. So many people have been watching my videos on YouTube, and that is wonderful. Some people have joined my channel, and I would urge you all to join. Joining does not mean you will get blown up with emails or anything. If you don't sign up for notifications, you won't get them. Okay, but again, it helps the analytics. It helps if I have more members, and it helps if people give me the thumbs up and whatnot. And people have been watching, but not always giving a thumbs up. I'd rather not have a thumbs down, but if you have some reason to have one, or if you'd like to leave a comment if something is bugging you, then let me know. Okay, I'm open to constructive criticism for sure. But I would appreciate it if you remember that now all of my videos will be deleted by Facebook after 30 days, and so they are all going to appear on YouTube channel right now. Okay, and my YouTube channel is the same as my business. Just search 11 Lakes Stamper. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening.